All right, welcome back to another episode of the Small Axe Podcast. And today, this is December 1st, guys. I am so excited for December, and I'm hanging out with a really cool dude that I've spent a lot of time with, speaking to, learning from, growing with, and I was able to watch his journey unfold as well. And really excited to get him on today. His name is Neil Schoepp, and let's get him on and have him talk a little bit about himself. Neil, welcome.
Hey, Nico, how are you? It's great to be here. I love having conversations and kind of just spreading the word of my personal journey. So thank you so much for the opportunity.
Awesome, man. I'm excited to have you. And here's the thing, every time that I've spoken to you, I come away feeling energetic, enthusiastic, and excited for the future and what we do, right? So that's why I want, our listeners today to kind of get a vibe from you and what you do, because you really are a great person. You have a great enthusiasm, and you just, you know how to approach life and business. So let's give the listeners some sort of background to kind of catch us up to how you got to where you are today, and then we'll take it one step further.
Absolutely. So I was born and raised in New York City, spent 40 plus years down there, and I hit every kid's exacta. I grew up and I became a police officer and then a fireman, both in New York City. And it was a wonderful time. I learned a lot. I had a lot of fun doing that, but it was still that W-2 grind. And I said, what can I do that gets me out of that W-2 grind from being married to the clock? And I found multifamily investing. Like most people, I started out at Bigger Pockets. I listened to a few podcasts. I got turned on to some guy named Gino Barbara. And I didn't know who this guy was, but he ended up being fairly local to me, about an hour away from me. And I looked into him and I found the Jake and Gino community. And that just really resonated with me. And I went down the multifamily rabbit hole. And then going down that rabbit hole, Gino gave me not only multifamily education, but he also gave me mindset. And the second I changed my mindset, that was like the domino that knocked all the other dominoes down. So now I'm out spreading the word of multifamily real estate and of mindset, because that's how it started with me. It started with my mindset first.
Beautiful, man. I love it. And, I can tell that with you, and you have all those awesome quotes behind you. I'm staring at one of them that really resonates with me, that burn the ships, man.
Burn the ships, baby.
Love that. So what happened? So you had essentially two careers. Do you collect pensions from both?
So I collect one pension. So it's just a pension from the city. It's not like two individual pensions, one from PD, one from FD. That time got combined together, and it's the pension based on both those careers.
Gotcha. And when did you essentially retire?
2015.
Wow, man.
So I did 24 years of service, and the numbers were just right. The writing was on the wall. Everything was happening at the same time, and it was just the time to get out. And that's when I found Gino. Gino really put the afterburners on for me.
Oh, the guy, he's amazing. I'm in the same community as you, Jake and Gino, as well as the mastermind, which I rave about both of them. I mean, without these communities, I would be nowhere. So how have they helped you?
So Jake and Gino specifically put me in a room with other people that didn't think I was crazy. That when I said I wanted to go out and buy real estate, their first comment wasn't, what, tenants and toilets? Because we always hear that, right? Everybody, that's the one thing. You're going to get a phone call at 3:00 in the morning. And it's that negativity and listening to people that don't have any real estate. Now, when I say real estate and somebody says tenants and toilets, or that 3:00 in the morning phone call, I ask them, how many doors do you have? And they don't have any doors because they're just listening to society.
Yep.
And then I approach it from that angle of, okay, well, can we have a conversation and I can show you why I'm doing this? Sometimes they're open to that. Sometimes they're not. It's just for me to share my journey. If you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink it, right? And the mastermind, dude, that mastermind, I joined that mastermind in January of 2020. It's the MIH mastermind by Marco Barber and Hadara Kibi. I joined that mastermind in January of 2020. My preschool closed their doors because of COVID in March of 2020. And I had no clue what I was going to do. And I just laid off 23 individuals.
Wow.
I was open 9 o'clock in the morning. I was closed 4 o'clock in the afternoon because I have a state license. And the state said, well, you're not essential. You need to close down. I was closed for 3 months. Within that 3 month window, before I even knew when I was going to open my doors, I doubled the footprint of there was a gym next door to me. We physically cut a hole in the wall
Oh my
and I
God.
expanded into another 60 by 60-foot compartment. So I doubled my footprint during COVID when I did not know when I was going to open my doors. And I contribute that directly to that mastermind, to Marco having conversations with me and just kind of walking me through it. And this is another really important point. Marco's story was the downturn in 2008 and his restaurant, right? Like, so he went through something very similar to what COVID was presenting for me. And being around an individual that went through something similar and was telling me it's going to be all right, you're going to get through this. Put the blinders on and do it for your family. Put the blinders on and do it. He kept saying that to me. And it really did get me through that transition. So I don't know if I would have doubled my footprint if not for the mastermind. Amazing group of individuals, both those
Absolutely.
communities.
I know, man. They really push us. They really, really encourage us, push us, cheer us on, and help us through any challenges that we're facing. Tell me a little bit more about this preschool, man.
So the wife has a background in education. She was a New York City school teacher and administrator before we left the city. And she now has a doctorate in education curriculum. So she runs the preschool primarily in training the teachers in the educational component of that. We started out as just a play center, and that turned into the community needed more. So we became a preschool, and then that turned into just increasing those numbers. So we went from 60 children to 120 children. And we did that practically overnight. And we did that in the middle of COVID.
Wow.
So when people say like COVID was either the best thing or the worst thing that happened to individuals, I really think it's in the perception of how you see that. Because if I saw COVID as this monster that was coming to gobble me up, I would have gotten gobbled up. I would have lost the business. All of those families wouldn't have the care that they're getting now. All of those team members, the staff, the employees wouldn't have that paycheck coming in. And that specifically came from the people that I'm surrounding myself with. There's another sign on the wall. I don't know if the camera's picking it up. Proximity is power. And proximity is the unfair advantage, actually. And what that means is it's the people you're surrounding yourself with, right? I surrounded myself with that mastermind, and that mastermind told me, you can make it through this. Don't worry about it. It's going to be okay. I've been there before. So I didn't have as much fear as I would have had if I didn't have that little angel called Marco on my shoulder chirping in my ear.
Totally, man. Oh, this is awesome. Now, so this is, I mean, look, this is why we do what we do. We connect with people that inspire us, that pump us up, that get us motivated and push us through these hard or scary times. And we're jumping into another scary time right now as well. Are you still looking for deals? Are you still going after buildings?
I'm excited.
Me too.
These aren't scary times. These are exciting times.
Yeah.
And they're exciting times because there's opportunity out there. Recessions, and you could debate whether we're in a recession or not in a recession, whatever the numbers say, whatever your personal view on it is, we are in scary times. But in those scary times, in history over those scary times, powerful businesses have been created. We're talking big time names like FedEx and Disney. They were created, and there's plenty of others that were created in quote unquote downtimes or recessions, or however you may want to phrase it, right? The downturn of 2008, the recession of 2008, that afforded a great opportunity if you took advantage of it. So am I more cautious now? Yeah, I'm a little bit more cautious, but I'm with a group of people, and this is what we talk about all day long. Like these are the conversations we have. And I really see this time as buying opportunities. Obviously, you do it in the proper manner and you're smart about it and you listen to your criteria and everything. But I'm not scared at all. I'm actually very excited.
Yeah, me too, man. That's why we're cut from the same mold, my friend. Hey, where are you targeting? And are you still in New York City?
So I left the city. I retired, right? I moved out. I moved from 8 million people to a small town of, the town has 1,500 people in it, and the zip code has 14,000. So there's more people in my old neighborhood than in my entire zip code. But yeah, so I moved out to the country. I focus primarily on the Hampton Roads area, so Virginia Beach, Norfolk, Suffolk, Chesapeake, that area. I have a really, really strong team down there, and that's specifically why I chose that area.
Cool.
I had the team in place, so I didn't have to go out and build the team. The team was already there.
How far are you from your properties?
It's about 8 hours, 7.5.
So
Yeah.
it's a testament to, you don't have to be in the exact, everybody's like, well,
Oh, no.
You don't have to, right? I got to start with, somewhere in my own neighborhood, not necessarily. I mean, yes and no, right? There's different ways to do it, but you can, if you're thinking that you're limited to your own backyard, this is breaking that limiting belief right now.
Yeah. You can, I can invest right now because of my network, right, Nico? I can invest in probably 20 different states tomorrow if that's what I chose to do, right? Because I have individuals in those states that know those markets and I can partner with them. That was another limiting belief I had all the way up to the mastermind, right? I got to do everything myself. I got to do everything myself. I got to do everything myself. I can't trust anybody. You got to remember, I came from New York City. My father told me that what's that guy's angle? Everybody has an angle. If it's too good to be true, it is. Right. I watched them play 3-card Monte on the street corners and people get taken advantage of. Then I became a police officer and I actually took the reports of the people getting scammed. So everything my father said was coming true. I thought people were evil. I didn't know like we could collaborate and people would work together for everybody's benefit. That's not the cloth I was cut from because of the environment that I was in. And then I come into this environment where everybody's like, yeah, you need something, just whatever. Right? Like you and I basically have the same database on our phone, and there's not a problem we can't solve. We just have to pick up the phone and make a phone call, and somebody in our sphere has the answer.
Totally, man. And it's funny. So the 2 properties that I own, so the 194 unit in Columbus, Ohio, I'd never stepped foot on, and I didn't have to. Now we just closed on the 16 unit in Florida. I'd never stepped foot, and I'll go down there, but I don't have to because I trust the people that I'm working with so much that they're part of me. It's like we are one. We are a team. We are a unit.
Yes, and that happens. I want to throw this out there because this is a very specific way things like this happen, right? You can meet people online. You can meet people through Jake and Gino. You can meet people through the mastermind, and you're jumping on Zoom calls with them and you're talking to them. You have a couple of phone calls with them, and that kind of takes the edge off of actually meeting in person. But you have to go to these events. You have to go to events, whether they're seminars, they're weekend events. Even if you're in a group and that group isn't doing events, but you resonate with a certain 5 or 10 people, put an event together yourself. Say, listen, guys, who's up for meeting in Daytona and going like down to Daytona for a weekend, and just physically get in the same room with people so that you can actually have a meal with them and break bread with them, because that is what accelerates it. Zoom is good, but when you get into that room and you sit down and you have a meal with them and you're sitting next to a campfire or a stream, or you take a fishing trip with them, whatever it may be, when you do that activity, it goes that relationship solidifies.
So powerful. There's nothing like, in-person networking, in-person meetings. Even if it's an organized event, I get so pumped up. But then, and even if it's a not an unorganized event, right? Just like you're saying, just meeting with a few people. Now I get so pumped up, and you also find out who you really want to work with. It's different. You don't get the same, you can really read somebody in person as opposed to on Zoom. So I approve.
Yeah. There's so many more nuances that you pick up on in that body language, the facial expressions. I could fool you here on a Zoom call for 20 minutes, 30 minutes. I can't fool you when we're in a hotel at an event for an entire weekend. Like you're gonna actually see. I love going out with people and paying attention to how they treat other people, not how they treat me or the group. So if we're sitting down at a restaurant, I give this example all the time. We're sitting down at a restaurant having lunch, and we're having a conversation just like we're having now. And the waitress comes over to bring whatever, the drink or the burger or whatever it is. Do you completely ignore her? Or do you like look at her, give her a nod, say thank you, something to that effect? Do you hold the door open for the couple coming out of the diner behind you or going into the diner after you? Like, do you let the lady go first? Like, just little nuances. I love looking and studying people in that manner because that really tells you the character of the individual.
Dude, that is huge, man. I love that.
Yeah.
Thanks, Neil. That's cool, man. I totally agree. And I do the same thing, but I don't really like identify it in myself as something that I specifically point out or look for in people, but I'm always doing it. I'm like, wait a minute, this person kind of treated the waiter like he doesn't
Yeah.
exist or wait, like, and I am not that way. And I like to work with people that are just like me, who've
Yes.
grown up with not, just appreciating people and things and roles and everything that we have in life.
Yes. Appreciating them. That's a hardworking individual. Like, I'm not above them. I'm not beneath them. We're two human beings. Like, she deserves the same respect. And a lot of times, fake people don't give that respect, right? They're transactional. A lot of times those individuals will be transactional people as opposed to relational people. And I'm just not a transactional person. It's just like that's just not me.
Cool,
I have
man.
no time for it, honestly.
Cool, cool. Hey, let's transition to talk a little bit about your coaching business.
Yeah, so it's just we go back to we go back to not Marco, but Marco's brother Gino, right? We go back to Gino. Gino, I went down to Florida, I met with Gino, and he said to me, if I say, why'd you put your phone there? Like if your phone, because we were sitting at a restaurant, right? We're having lunch, and my phone was on the table, and I had asked him a question, and he said, well, let me ask you this. If I said to you about your phone being on the table, why did you put your phone there? How would you perceive that? Would you perceive it as Gino thinks that I'm being rude for having my phone out during a conversation and a meeting with him? Or would you perceive it as he's looking out for my phone because it's next to the glass of water and the water could tip over and destroy the phone? And that was my very, very first introduction to mindset and perceptions. And it really opened my eyes to how you perceive the world is the energy that you're going to get. So the energy that I'm putting out in my perception of the world is the energy that I'm going to get back. Great example is I'm sitting in Walmart parking lot. I'm sitting in my car in the parking lot in Walmart. Somebody backs into my car. Do I get out and say, oh my God, it always happens to me. If I didn't have bad luck, I'd have no luck. This always happens to me. I woke up this morning, my shirt was wrinkled. Then it was raining out. Now I got hit. Like, if you're putting that energy out, you're going to find that energy. Every time you see a scenario, you're going to look at that through that victim mentality, and that's all you're going to receive back, and you're going to be in that vicious cycle. Or I could get out of the car like I would have a couple of years ago with the New York attitude and yelling and screaming. What the hell? You didn't see me sitting here? I was parked. What did you do? Get your license out of a Cracker Jack box? Like, put a pair of glasses on. Right? With that attitude of yelling and screaming. Again,
Mhm.
what good is it doing me? Or I can get out of the car and I can go over to the person and say, listen, are you okay? Do you need anything? Did you black out? Do you need an ambulance? Obviously, something must have went wrong if you didn't see me sitting here, because nobody wakes up in the morning and says, I'm going to go to Walmart and back into somebody's car. Nobody wants that. So are you acting out of concern for that individual and concern for the situation? And a big one for me was taking responsibility. Now, taking responsibility is like, a lot of people just raise their eyebrow. Like, how are you taking responsibility for this? Somebody backed into you. I chose to go to Walmart at that point in time. I chose that parking spot. I chose to be in that place at that moment. So did I cause the accident? No, but I am responsible for my actions of being there. And when you take that responsibility on, it actually lightens the whole situation. Because at the end of the day, what's going to happen? We're going to exchange information and my car is going to get fixed. Me getting out and acting as a victim, or me getting out and yelling and screaming at the individual and flipping them off and all of that is just going to raise my blood pressure. And it's not going to do anything for me. So if I attack the world always through that lens of I'm the victim, or I got to yell and scream, or I have to judge people, I don't get anything back. And the more you go out there and you look at the world as opportunities, and you look at it in abundance and in that positive, all of a sudden you start seeing positive things. There's a whole bunch of science that goes behind that, right? Like the reticular activating system, what you focus on. Perfect example of that is I say red car to you, and now you're going to see red cars all the time because your brain thinks that red cars are important. So if I make concern my important factor, as opposed to yelling and screaming in conflict or being a victim, then I'm going to give concern. When I give that concern, I'm going to get that concern.
Love it, man. And I think that having accountability and taking responsibility for things that happen in our life, it gives us power and gives us ownership and control over our lives. You know, that's how we really, really empower ourselves, right? If we give away by blaming others and having that victim mentality or blaming situations, we just gave the power away and we are now out of control, right?
Yes. I'll give you another real quick example. You're driving down the highway, somebody cuts you off to get to the exit ramp. You can white knuckle that steering wheel. You can yell and scream at them. You can flip them off. And when you get to your location, wherever you're going, you're going to tell that person about this idiot that was on the highway. When you get home, you're going to tell your neighbor and your wife and everybody else. And that's going to stay with you for days and days and days. Or you could be on the highway, they cut you off, and you could be like, God, please watch over that individual. Somebody in his family must be hurt or sick, or he must have something really important that he's doing, because nobody would drive like that in their right mind. Please watch over them. And when I get to where I'm going, I don't even remember that happened. It's already off the table.
Yep.
And it's all in how I framed it.
Love it, man. All right, cool. So do you offer people some sort of like consultation, or what is your program like?
So people can reach out to me through email, neil@neilschoepp.com. I'm always willing to add value to people, give them 30 minutes, offer them value, advice, just an ear to listen to, whatever helps them move forward. The website has a free download for a PDF on a booklet that I wrote on breaking through fear. 25 pages of what fear is, what anxiety is, what the difference between them are, and some strategies that I've used over the 24 years of being in the fire department and the police department in pushing through fears, and how I approach fear and how I use fear's energy to push me forward, not hold me back. Fear can be the wind in your sail of a sailboat, or it can be the wind in a parachute that's holding you back. It all depends on how you decide or you choose to apply it.
That is huge. You know, I think people can get some serious value out of that. I love that. Let's transition to our final question, and then we'll get another, you know, we'll get the form of contacting you again or finding your website again. So The
Sure thing.
final question is, let's imagine it was 100 years from now. You now have great grandkids. They're happy, man. No fear. They're rocking and rolling. They want to write a book about you. What would you want them to title this book?
Wow. I'm going to steal a title and readjust it. It's going to be What Would Neil Do? And that comes from What Would the Rockefellers Do? The book, What Would the Rockefellers Do? What would Neil do? Because I hope to be that guiding light that people look at and say, literally, what would Neil do in this scenario? How would he think about it? What paradigm would he look through? How would he change the paradigm? How would he change the perception? What strategy or technique would he use? Who would he go to get additional advice or knowledge? So what would Neil do?
Beautiful,
100
man.
years in his life.
Oh, I love it. And that's how it is. After, my father passed away, and it's an ongoing thought. What would my dad do in this situation? And that's how we keep people alive, right? So they live through us. I love it, Neil.
Absolutely.
All right, let's get listeners some form of reaching out and contacting you.
Well, email's the easiest way. Neil, Neil, at Neil Schoepp. So NeilSchoepp, Peter Peter. That's my direct email. I don't have a assistant or an executive or a VA. You talk directly to me. That's the easiest way. You could find me on Facebook. The coaching's Neil Schoepp. My personal page is Neil R. Schoepp. So there's a little difference in that. Reach out to me. Like, I'm always, I love mindset. I love real estate. I love when the light bulb goes on for people. I love crushing limiting beliefs. I love expanding my network. So just reach out to me and follow up. And nobody ever follows up. So follow up and make it happen.
Love it, Neil. It's always a pleasure hanging out with you and talking to you. I just get excited, like I said in the beginning, from listening to your perspective, how you crush limiting beliefs and how you conquer fear. And I think that it is extremely important for everybody in our industry to really, really work through that stuff as well. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Nico, great to be here. I hope you guys got something out of it. You can always crush your limiting beliefs. So when you're coming up on your limiting belief, find somebody that can crush it for you. When you know you're having that belief and you're having that blockage, find somebody to crush it for you. Just expand your network and get into the right rooms. Love being here, brother.
Thanks, my man. Let's talk soon.
You got it. Take care of yourself.